prepared for the final phase of the training. She was still there, and we are very happy with the progress that she has made. We are very excited. And our Deputy Judge President, Judge President Patswane, thanks also for being here and for a wise and very powerful words. And she started by saying, which is a very powerful slogan. Very powerful slogan. And at some point we need to communicate what it means so that people can have a full understanding of what it means. I'm told the Deputy Chair of the NCOP is joining us on a visual platform, Ms. Sylvia Lucas. Let me also greet the LPC Chairperson, Ms. Jenny Mayberg, and representatives of the South African Chapter of Women Judges, President of SALWA Student Chapter, Ms. Nomako Kumahlango, and I saw Brigadier Moeng is also here from South African Police Service. She's responsible for forensics here in the province. The Commissioner on Gender Equality, Ms. Bongwana, and we also have representatives from the NPA. And let me greet our colleagues from the International Federation of Women Lawyers. And let me greet everybody that is here, ladies and gentlemen. It gives me great pleasure to honor the invitation to speak on behalf of the Northern Cape Provincial Government and express our views on the gender-based violence. This platform and engagement sessions could not come at a better time as we are grappling with this pandemic. Gender-based violence is a serious challenge and a blight on our democratic gains and should not be trivialized. This is a fight that we should take seriously. We should not politicize it, neither should we trivialize it. I'm encouraged by the stand taken by our females in the legal profession to fight women and child abuse, and for joining a clarion call that says, not in our name shall the lives of our women and children be threatened. I certainly will pick up in my speech, I use female and woman interchangeably. And I'm doing that deliberately because there's a difference between the two. At birth, what we register is sex. And it becomes a female or a male. And as we grow in society, as we are part and parcel of society and getting socialized, that distinction falls off. You become a woman or a man. Because like any other animal species, we are women, we are male or female, which is the distinction in birth. That's the reason if you look at your birth certificate, it says sex. And socialization in society brings in what we call as gender. And that gender brings with it a woman and a man. And these are social constructs. So society creates a woman. And society creates a man. And attaches stereotypes and prejudices to a woman and as well to a man. A woman that is emotional, a woman that can't think, It's a social construct. It's society that produces that woman. It's not nature. Because at birth we get registered ourselves, either you're a male or you're a female, like any other animals. So I'm using the two interchangeably. They're trying to bring about the consciousness and understanding that when we speak of a woman, we speak of a social construct that society created. And because society is dominated by men, so what a woman is what is defined. I just hope I'm making a bit of sense. That's what is called patriarchy. We define what a woman is. We attach prejudices to that definition. And we misinterpret the childbearing responsibility by a woman as a weakness. And so what a woman is what society creates. And the society evolves gradually. All these prejudices which are attached to a woman are starting to fade away. There was a point where society believed that women can't be good judges, isn't it? You've got the best brains of judges amongst women today. We've got a society that once said, you can't go to a woman lawyer, arcade, and all of that. You'll end up in jail. So bad. You'll be convicted. You use a woman, you'll be convicted. And that perception and that prejudice is evaporating. Because it's a social construct. It's how you get socialized. It's how you get socialized. There are still those who still believe that. It's not only women, it's not only men, but there are also women who believe that. There's an issue which was raised by one of my colleagues who spoke before me. He said, why is it that women activists in the main are instructing male advocates? Because the issue of patriarchy has got an element of co-option. Men are in charge, they co-opt some women to be in charge, to run the patriarchy as well. And that's the reason why the issue of gender oppression, women are both victims and perpetrators. There are women, when they get into power, their first targets is women. It's women. And you hear women in an institution say, it was better when we had a man in. First target, women. It's like us, when as a black person, previously disadvantaged, you move up the ladder, the economic ladder. You don't want to see other black people going up. It's like women, some of them when they reach, they move through the ladder in their different professions. Don't want to see others moving up. And they end up being perpetrators of gender oppression. So program director, I'm using women and female interchangeably. And I'm very cautious about why I'm doing that. Program director, at the forefront of all our campaigns advocating strongly against GBV, has always been women. We are, however, pleased to also witness that more and more men are stepping up and making their voices heard in the condemnation of GBV. I personally give you the assurance that as the Premier of this province, I commit to uphold the rights and protection of women and children and commit to fight this injustice. Program Director, it is evident that our country is seized with this crisis that impacts on every member of society. Our communities are gripped by fear and desperate for a solution to end violence against those most vulnerable. The killing of our women and children need to stop. Gender-based violence is both a consequence and a cause of gender inequality in all its forms. Allow me, therefore, to express my gratitude to all of you for making this societal scourge part of your engagements, as it bears testimony to our collective concern in the fight against gender-based violence and femicide in our communities. We acknowledge that we cannot do it alone, and we need partners such as you to fight alongside us. We live in a world where, for some women, the only crime they have ever committed, if we can refer to it as such, is to be a woman. It is indeed our second pandemic, as referred to by our state president, His Excellency Mr. Cyril Ramaphosa. This is largely due to the fact that since the beginning of 2020, the entire world began its continuing battle against COVID-19, and in our country, this battle was accompanied and compounded by the persistent and aggravated surge of GBV. This man-made pandemic that afflicts our society and our country at large is on a persistent and ever-increasing rise. This unfortunate scourge of gender-based violence and femicide not only confronts our women, but also our children and members of the LGBTQIA+ sector. As government, civil society, the business sector, and yourselves, from the legal fraternity, we therefore need to work together in a coordinated manner to eradicate this scourge from our society. Program Director, the problem of gender-based violence is a complex, multi-layered phenomenon within society, which, if we fail to eradicate it in our communities, has the potential to not only have a permanent and devastating impact on the lives of survivors of violence and their families, but also on our economy. While there are multi-perspective descriptions within social sciences on gender-based violence and femicide, this phenomenon is often associated with other social ills such as poverty, unemployment, alcoholism, and a childhood history of violence, amongst others. Another devastating impact of gender-based violence is that it transcends social and economic boundaries and affects women and girls of all socio-economic backgrounds. That's what we tend to believe, is that gender-based violence is only amongst the poor, the downtrodden, and those who don't have adequate means of livelihood. But this gender-based violence is within professionals. Encounter the problem, the rich, and those highly educated households, there is gender-based violence. The World Bank estimates that in some countries, violence against women is estimated to cost countries up to 3.7% of their GDP, more than double what most governments spend on education. Nobody is safe from this scourge. It is argued by many scholars that GBV, F, and intimate partner violence are chronic conditions that are transferred from one generation to another. Failure to address this issue will thus bear a significant cost for the future, not only economically, but also in the cohesion of our society. Program Director, each sector department is required in the province to budget for activities which are related to our fight against gender-based violence. And these activities are incorporated in the annual performance plans of departments so that they report quarterly on the achievements. In addition to this, I have also established a political task team that is responsible for the implementation of this plan. This is an interdepartmental task team with the MEC of Transport, Safety and Liaison as the convener, and the Secretariat is led by the Office of the Status of Women in the province, in the Premier's office. Implementation at the municipal level takes place through the district development model, where a process of joint and collaborative planning is undertaken at local district levels by all 3 spheres of government, resulting in a single strategically focused one plan for service delivery. Program Director, research has shown that children who grow up and are exposed to violence are likely to become victims or perpetrators of violence in the future themselves. This plan therefore moves from the premise that women empowerment has the potential to lift women from their often constrained environment and enable them to effectively address violence in their domestic and social environments. It is acknowledged in the plan that to eradicate violence against women and children, government will not be able to achieve it alone. It will require community-based, multi-pronged approaches and sustained engagement with multiple stakeholders like SALWA if we are to win the war against the social evil. Underlying risk factors for violence including social norms regarding gender roles and the desensitization of society to accept violence as part of what social currency needs to be addressed. The narrative program director that this abuse of women and children only happens in poor households with no educational levels has over the last years been exposed to be incorrect. It also happens in most affluent homes and certainly within the legal profession itself. The Commission on Gender Equality also plays a critical role in continued monitoring and evaluation of the program in collaboration with the Office of the Premier as it fulfills its role. In promoting gender equality and to advise and make recommendations to Parliament or any other legislature with regard to any laws or proposed legislation affecting gender equality and the status of women. In our province program director for the first 3 months of this year, a total of 1,628 cases of crimes against women were reported. This represents an increase of 33.2% in comparison with the reported cases for the same period for the previous financial year. Noteworthy is the fact that the conviction rate for crimes against women in this period increased to 80.7%. I think for all those who are judicial officers and the prosecutors, we need to celebrate this achievement of 80.7% conviction rate. As it relates to crimes against children, a total of 434 cases for crimes against children were reported for the first 3 months of this year, which is an increase of 21.2% in comparison with the reported cases for the same period for the previous financial year. The conviction rate for crimes against children in the province is standing at 82.9%. That's also another major achievement that we need to celebrate. GBVF remains a high priority for government, and therefore as the provincial government we are working jointly with SAPS to embark on a number of advocacy programs to address the scourge of violence against women and children in the province. Program Director, our intervention plan on gender-based violence and the subsequent advocacy programs are premised on the theory of change. It moves from the premise that through the implementation of various intervention activities as mentioned, communities and individuals will change their behavior. Customs and values to bring about social change in a way women and children are treated and perceived. The intervention should aim to transform the relation, norms, and systems that sustain gender inequality and violence in communities of the Northern Cape. As indicated, intervention should operate at multiple levels, from individuals to society, since the scourge is a complex, multifaceted, and multi-layered phenomenon. All of us must pledge to uphold and promote the rights, safety, and protection of women and children, and I therefore encourage and urge you to end the silence. As I conclude, I once more wish to thank you for the opportunity to address you today and wish that your deliberations will yield positive results that will contribute to building a great nation free from abuse, neglect, and violence. Thank you very much.